Good day. I'm going to talk about the personality inventory developed by Paul Costa and Robert McRae, which is called NEO-PIR, or Neuroticism, Extroversion, Openness Personality Inventory Revised. The description of this test: it is a self-administered paper and pencil test composed of 240 statements rated on a 5-point Likert type scale from strongly disagree to strongly agree. It is also can administered either to individuals or groups. So the NEO items request information concerning to individuals' typical behavior patterns, which are their usual feelings and opinions, and attitudes relating to self, others, and situation. So NEO-PIR, it consists of 5 personality dimensions and 30 more specific facets, scales. So the 5 personality dimensions are neuroticism, extroversion, openness, and then later on they discover or they added agreeableness and conscientiousness. So neuroticism, the facets of neuroticism are anxiety, anger, hostility, depression, self-consciousness, impulsiveness, and vulnerability. While the extroversion facets are warmth, gregariousness, assertiveness, activity, excitement, seeking, and positive emotions. And then the dimension of openness, the facets are fantasy, aesthetic, feelings, actions, ideas, and values. While the latter discovery, agreeableness, the facets are trust, straightforwardness, altruism, compliance, modesty, and tender-mindedness. And the last one is conscientiousness, or the facets of this dimension are competence, order, dutifulness, achievement, strength, self-discipline, and deliberation. And the major concern or focus of NEO-PIR is the description of normal human traits that strive to be relevant, understandable, and accurate in terms of behavioral prediction. So why NEO-PIR developed? It was developed as an inventory to assess enduring personality characteristics in a normal population. Upon their further research, in many different model of personality, decided that there is a 5-factor na makakapagpaliwanag or necessary to comprehensively to describe individual personality. It was developed also to provide a framework that can explain personality and also to predict the behavior of an individual. Theoretical foundation of NEO-PIR. I decided to include this lexical hypothesis by Alport and Albert because I believe that most of the word that describe the personality characteristic in NEO-PIR is nanggaling dito sa discover or pinagtrabahuhan ni Alport and Albert. So Gordon Alport and H.S. Albert had worked through two of the most comprehensive dictionaries of the English language available at the time and extracted 18,000 personality describing words. So some of these terms usually referred to as traits, so describe as relatively stable characteristics such as sociable, and introverted, while the other one is usually referred to as states, which describe temporary characteristics such as happy and angry. Another theoretical foundation is the dispositional theories by Gordon Allport. So he believed the most important structure of personality are those that permit the description of a person in terms of individual characteristics that he called personal disposition. So through all of his career, he carefully distinguished. He was so careful to distinguish common traits and personal traits. So for him, common traits are the general characteristic held in common by many people and provide the means by which people within a given culture can be compared. For Gordon Allport, yung common traits, ito yung general characteristic na common sa lahat ng tao. And for him, ito yung importante para sa pag-aaral to make comparison among people. And personal dispositions is even more important para naman magbigay ng permit sa mga researchers sa pag-aaral ng personality ng isang individual. I also included 16-factor personality model by Raymond Cattell because I discovered that he organized and analyzed those adjective list na na-discover or tinrabaho ni Allport and Advert. So by using factor analysis, he generated 12 factors and then included 4 factors which he thought ought to appear. And those individuals describe themselves and each other according to 16 different independent factors. And later on, Cattell went on to construct the 16 PF personality question. Also included 3 dimensions of personality by Hans J. Eysenck. He believed that the individual differences in people's personalities were biological and not merely psychological aspects of personality. So for him, genetic differences lead to structural differences in the central nervous system. So for him, the differences is based on the brain structure, hormones, and neurotransmitters. And he believed that differences in biology lead to differences along the 3 factors of personality, which are extroversion, neuroticism, and psychoticism. So, si Hans J. Eysenck, yung kanyang fundamental basement is taxonomy, which is factor analysis and biology. So, nag-come up lang siya sa 3 dimension of personality, which are yung extroversion, introversion, neuroticism or stability, and psychoticism or superego. So, he says, psychometric sophistication alone is not sufficient to measure the structure of human personality, and that personality dimensions arrive at factor analytic methods. So, meaningless pa rin para sa kanya ang psychometric measurement kung hindi i-include yung biological aspect ng isang individual. So, with this assumption in his mind, Hans Eysenck listed 4 criteria for identifying a factor. First, psychometric evidence for the factor's existence must be established, meaning the factors should be consistently identifiable, it should be reliable and replicable. Second, factor must also possess heritability and must fit an established genetic model. So meaning this criteria eliminates the learned characteristic of an individual, such as the ability to mimic voices from a well-known person or personality or people, or a religious or a political belief. Third, a factor must make sense from a theoretical view. So factors must begin with a theory and then gathering data that are logically consistent with that theory. And lastly, the existence of a factor is that must possess social relevance. So factor should have a relationship with such socially relevant variables such as drug addiction, proneness to unintentional injuries, outstanding performance in sports, psychotic disorder or behavior, and criminality. And down to the last theoretical foundation, the five-factor trait theory from the developer of Neo-PIR, Robert McCrae and Paul Costa. In 1970s and early 80s, like other factor researchers who were who were building elaborate taxonomies of personality traits. But unlike those who are using classifications to generate testable hypotheses, they were simply using factor analytic techniques to examine the stability and structure of personality. At the time, they are more focused on the two main dimensions of neuroticism and extroversion. And almost immediately after the discovery of these two main dimensions, they found the third factor, which they called openness to experience. In 1980s, they were arguing for a three-factor model personality. Not until they began to report work on the five factors of personality, the last two dimensions, which are agreeableness and conscientiousness. So their work began as an attempt to identify basic personality traits as revealed by factor analysis, then evolved it into a taxonomy and the five-factor model. This model became a theory and one that can both predict and explain behavior. So noon, yung umpisa pa lang nilang pagka-discover dun sa five-factor traits na yon ng personality, tinawag nila noon ito na five-factor model kasi naka-based on taxonomy siya. But then, sabi nga ni Costa and ni McCrae, kailangan maging reliable yung kanilang discovery. Kailangan makabase sa theory. So, ginawa nila yung lahat para ma-base siya, maging theory siya, and tinawag nila itong five-factor trait theory. So, the strengths of this personality inventory. Neo-PIR focuses on understanding personality traits in normal population. So, instead of focusing on pathology, it assesses areas on continuum that represent a broad spectrum of styles, behavior, attitudes, values, and beliefs. Then second, it is applicable to both pathological and non-pathological populations. So, it is successfully applied in clinical, educational, occupational, and even in medical settings. Third, the language used, even in the scoring and interpretation, is relatively easily understood by a wide range of people. So the scoring and the interpretation can be understood by a lot of people, different people. And but it doesn't mean that anybody can accurately interpret the test, but it says that it takes much less translation from skills to people. And lastly, Neo-PIR is extremely useful test in the assessment of personality characteristics of relatively normal persons as well as clinical assessment. So it measures variables that interest in great number of people and uses it relatively understandable concept that lend themselves toward therapeutic feedback. Yes, Neo-PIR does have strengths, but it also have weaknesses. First, there is no direct assessment of problems or problem behaviors. So, the measurement of this Neo-PIR cannot be used as a standalone measure in clinical assessment. So, in the absence of other measurements or measures, it will not provide specific diagnostic recommendations, although some scale configurations may be linked with certain types of pathology. Second one is lack of solid validity scales. Though this test is valid and has face validity, but it is lack of scales or items to modify other scales, and the transparency likely makes the test easier to manipulate. The weakness of this personality inventory is that it does not measure all human personality. It feels like it neglects other personality traits, such as religiosity, manipulativeness, honesty, thriftiness, conservativeness, masculinity and femininity, snobbishness, sense of humor, and among others. So lastly, another weakness of Neo-PIR is that it relies on self-report questionnaires to be measured. So self-report bias or falsification of responses is completely impossible. You can see in the screen, this is the continuation of my discussion. I'm going to discuss about CFIT by Raymond Cattell and Karen Cattell. CFIT or Cattell's Culture Fair Intelligence Test. So the description of this test: this is a nonverbal paper and pencil test designed as a culturally unbiased test to measure one's intelligence. The goal of this test is to measure one's fluid intelligence, analytical and abstract reasoning. So culture fair intelligence test consists of two analogous parts, A and B, constituting two separate booklets, and each part includes 4 compound tests. CFIT can be administered to patients as young as 4 years old. This test designed to assess the ability of an individual to recognize shapes, figures, and perceive their respective relationships. So, in culture fair intelligence test, there are 4 subtests: series or completing series, classifications, classifying, matrices, solving matrices, and condition evaluating conditions. Development of CFIT. Raymond Cattell created CFIT because he argued that general intelligence exists, that it consists of fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence. So, crystallized intelligence for him involves knowledge comes from prior learning and past experiences. So this intelligence based upon facts and rooted in experiences, while fluid intelligence involves being able to think and reason abstractly and resolve problems. So this ability is considered independent of experiences, learning and education. And also, he developed a test which is culturally biased that can assess individual intelligence. The theoretical foundation of CFIT. So, unifactor theory of Alfred Binet. His theory of intelligence was rather simple as it arose from his differentiating more intelligent from less intelligent individual. So this theory is the oldest in origin. It holds that intelligence consists of factor, a fund of intellectual competence which is universal to all activities. So, a man who has strength can move as much in one direction as he can in another. He conceptualized intelligence as consisting of one similar set of abilities. So for him, an individual has the fund of intelligence, so they can utilize it in any sphere of life. And as depending on it, they can be successful in one sphere as in any other. So he assumes that intelligence to be a guarantee of success in all spheres of human life. With certain specific types of ability, an individual would be entirely successful in a particular area and completely unsuccessful in other areas or another area. The two-factor theory of Charles Spearman. According to him, two-factor theory of intelligence employing a statistical method called factor analysis. And he believes that intelligence consisted of a general factor or G factor and some specific factors or S factors. G factor includes mental operations which are primary and common to all performances. So G factor is a universal invariability. It is constant. The amounts of G and D is differ from person to person. And the greater the G in an individual, the greater in his success in life. And general intelligence is a sort of general mental energy running through all the different tests, while S factors are specific abilities that a person possesses, where an expression is different depending on a person's ability. So a specific factor or capabilities give an individual the ability to deal with specific problems. They can even modify, or it can be modified by learning or habitual training. The other theoretical framework is the theory of primary mental abilities by Louis Thurston. So according to him, instead of viewing intelligence as a single general ability, this theory focused on 7 different primary mental abilities, all of which were relatively independent of each other. So those 7 different mental abilities are verbal comprehension, reasoning, perceptual speed, numerical ability, word fluency, associative memory, and spatial visualization. The structure of intellect model by J.P. Guilford. So he proposed the structure of intellect model, which classifies intellectual traits among three dimensions, which are operations, contents, and products. So operations are what the respondent does, which include cognition, memory recording, memory retention, divergent production, convergent production, and evaluation. While contents refer to the nature of materials or information on which intellectual operations are performed. These include visual, auditory, and symbolic, like letters and numbers, and semantic, like words, behavior, information about people's behavior, attitudes, and needs. Then products refer to the form in which information is processed by the respondent. So products are classified into units, classes, relations, systems, transformations, and implications. Next is Cattell's theory of fluid and crystallized intelligence, the author of CFIT, Raymond Cattell, and together with John Hearn. So according to them, fluid and crystallized intelligence suggests that intelligence is composed of several different abilities and interact and work together to produce overall individual intelligence. So for them, fluid intelligence is defined as the ability to perceive relationships independent of previous specific practice of instruction concerning those relationship. And crystallized intelligence involves knowledge that comes from prior learning and past experience. So according to them, fluid intelligence involves being able of an individual to think and reason abstractly and solve problems. So this ability is considered independent of learning, experience, and education. While crystallized intelligence, it is something that we accumulate. It is either new knowledge or understanding and experiences. And it becomes stronger when we become old. Strengths of CFIT. So, culture fair intelligence test is culturally fair, and items do not favor in particular cultural group. And it assesses the cognitive abilities underlying intellectual behavior, as well as the test accurately predicts performance for all groups. In addition to that, it concerned with basic processes of reasoning and other mental activities that minimally depend on learning and acculturation. And lastly, everyone has an equal opportunity to learn and be exposed to the task in the test, and it's formal. Weaknesses of CFIT. So, culture fair testing is an idealized abstraction that is never achieved in the real world. So, yung sinasabi niyang culture fair, it's impossible to achieve. Kasi kahit anong gawin mo, you cannot eliminate to be culturally fair. It tends to favor people from culture in which it was developed. So sometimes it is favorable sa kung sino yung nag-develop nung test na yon, favorable dun sa kanyang mga kalahi kasi mas applicable sa kanila. Kasi nga same culture ang pinanggalingan nila. The meaning of the test may differ among cultural groups, which will affect the validity of comparison. Sometimes, kasi yung language ng ibang group of people is not familiar with the language that are using in the test. The whole process of standardization is faulty and misleading. So, yung standardization niya is not yet flawless. So, sometimes nagkakaroon siya ng misleading. And the absence of face validity. Yun. Face validity as we describe it. The face validity means pag tiningnan mo yung isang test, malalaman mo na kung ano yung dapat sukatin ng test na yon. Pag tingin mo pa lang dun sa test na yon is alam mo na kung ano yung test na yun, kung saan, para saan at kung anong gagawin. So, hindi naman siya totally absence, pero lack of face validity. So, thank you. That's all for my discussion.